Everybody's looking for narcissistic tells. I'm going to give you one of the most important ones. The single question I get most is, Dr. R, how do I really know if this person in my life is narcissistic? Most of the times I tell people, or I might be thinking, it's actually kind of the wrong question. The bigger thing that I'd want to know, so I don't want to tell you someone's narcissistic or not, but rather, what are the patterns you're observing in this relationship, and are they consistent? Are you seeing that those traits come together? Pathological selfishness, the pseudo-empathy, the grandiosity, arrogance and entitlement, the vindictiveness, the blame shifting, the dysregulated anger, the victimhood, the poor frustration tolerance, the status seeking, the concern with the superficial. Listen, I'm less concerned with the label narcissistic than I am in helping people recognize these patterns, these traits, how they translate into behavior. Give people the tools to not excuse them, to recognize the harm they can cause, and recognize that when all of this occurs together, that the likelihood of change is pretty small. So this way people can hold more realistic expectations for what to do in one of these relationships. This word, narcissism, it scares people, and I understand why. But interestingly, the word also relieves people. It relieves people because they think, okay, all right, now I know what I'm dealing with. But it scares people because we do know that this pattern is difficult to change, that this isn't about one bad day or 100 bad days, but it's how it is. And whatever change can happen is often not enough for significant repair or a sense of psychological safety in the relationship. But any change might be that maybe you get a few more thank yous and a few less betrayals. Only you know if that's enough for you, if that amount of change is enough. So what's the ringer? What's this thing, this one sign to really kind of that helps you understand whether these patterns actually all add up to narcissism? And I got to tell you, after this many years of doing this, other than the patterns I've already talked about and the stuff we know, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the betrayal, the devaluation, all the stuff we've talked about, this universal signature move in narcissistic people, you ready? It's lack of accountability. That's it. So let's break this down. Accountability is powerful stuff. When there's accountability, it can really often help us bridge some pretty big divides. However, this is why it's tricky with narcissistic relationships and doesn't happen. The shame of accountability associated with accountability, it's not a shameful thing, but for narcissistic people it is. And it's why we almost never get real accountability or see someone take real responsibility in a narcissistic relationship. And this becomes the primary reason that the depressing awareness that this person you do care about isn't going to change is only part of the issue. Because even if they do change, even if it's just a little bit, that change may happen, but you're still probably never going to get accountability. That means you never really get repair. So the relationship only works, honestly, if you're still to blame for the problems. And that also means, for example, if you do leave, you never get that thing that everyone desperately wants, which is closure. So let's talk about accountability. What does it really mean? Well, it means a few things. It means at the simplest level, taking ownership of things that we have done or said. Yeah, it was me. I dented the car. Yeah, it was me. I didn't mail that bill on time. Yep, I absolutely was impolite to your sister. I agree. Yeah, I was having sex with them. No, I didn't think about your feelings. Nah, I haven't apologized to your sister. Nope, I haven't called the therapist yet. Yeah, I have been more distant lately. Accountability is a combination of honesty, not lying about what you did and didn't do, and taking responsibility and acknowledging what you did. But it's not just that. And this is where accountability gets tricky with a narcissistic person. Accountability is also self-awareness and not making an excuse. So done right is more of a, yeah, I had sex with them and I didn't think about how it would affect you, and I just went with the moment, and I do these things and I don't think, and I hurt you, and I see that and I'm sorry. Or, yeah, I know, I say I'll do things and I don't do them, and that's not okay, and I know it throws off our lives, and frankly it hurts everyone. The self-awareness piece of accountability can also be, I know I pull away at times when I'm stressed, and I know it doesn't feel good. I'm sorry that I do that, and I'm truly sorry that it hurts you. Or I recognize that I need to work on my anger. It's not okay. Or I'm aware that I do try to take care of everything myself, and when it falls apart, I act like an asshole, and I can be controlling and not account for other people's feelings. Imagine hearing that. And in a narcissistic relationship, you are not likely to. Because even if they say that to you and they did have sex with that person and it ends, you still might feel some sense of closure, right? Accountability is the anti-gaslight. Listen, it may suck if a person that matters to you pulls away or was loud or angry or betrayed your trust. But if the person says, I was out of line, I did do that. I did do that thing you were experiencing, and I am sorry. When that happens, there is a decent chance, not always, but there's a decent chance that we can repair, that we don't feel crazy, that we trust what we are feeling, that we feel safe, like, okay, that was happening. Now, a person can't keep yelling and keep being accountable. It doesn't work that way, but that's not likely to happen. A person who is accountable is actually going to be much, much, much more willing to address the issue. They're accountable for it. They're like, yeah, this isn't okay. I need to work on my anger. I need to go to therapy and address this because it is hurting people. And then there's more likely to be real change. It is highly unlikely that a genuinely accountable person would just keep being accountable and not change. But there may be moments of slippage. None of us are perfect. Okay, so it may be that they are being accountable. They do slip, but you are able to craft a solution together. So for example, it may be, yeah, I'm owning it. I do pull away when I'm stressed. And I know my backstory, it's not an excuse, and I don't want to hurt you. So you work together as a couple or as a group of friends or a family to figure out paths forward. That may then be that person who pulls away saying, well, let me show you my schedule so maybe we can plan around this a little bit. You know, my deadlines are, so it feels a little more predictable. Or maybe I'm just going to stay at the office later and get this all done, so I'm not coming at home and behaving like this kind of a jerk. Again, none of this is likely to ever happen in a narcissistic relationship. They would just get enraged that you were pointing out their behavior. True apologies require accountability. I'm sorry doesn't cut it. I'm sorry I did fill in the blank is better. And for the win, it's I'm sorry I did fill in the blank. I recognize and I know it was hurtful. I can see it was hurtful, and I'm so genuinely sorry for that. Accountability is not excuses. It's, yes, I pull away when I'm stressed, but that's because I had trauma as a kid, and you knew that about me, so you can't really be mad at me. That's not accountability. No. After you are accountable, perhaps that's going to lead to deeper conversations. Maybe you're going to talk about the origin story of a problem pattern. And then it may not be an excuse, because it can't be an excuse. Then we're no longer in accountability territory. But it's a call to action to slowly address it, to remain accountable. And if the other person has empathy, you can work through these lapses and fallbacks, because none of us are perfect, right? And hopefully keep on moving forward. That's what happens in healthy relationships. Accountability drives repair. Repair can drive intimacy and depth and growth in a relationship. A person getting angry or pulling away or behaving badly in a relationship is not typically what ends it. What ends it is a person doing those things and not being accountable. That's what ends it. Lack of accountability feeds into the narcissistic person's signature move, which is blame shifting. Not only is the narcissistic person unwilling to be genuinely accountable. Yes, okay, I didn't mail the paperwork in, but really it's your fault because you didn't put it where I could see it. They blame other folks around them for anything that they did wrong. Things like, yes, I was angry and I was loud, but it's your fault because you don't help me enough. Yes, I pull away when I'm stressed, but you know what? It's your fault for not trying harder. Yes, I slept with them and it's your fault for not paying enough attention to me. Simply saying, yes, I did it is not accountability. You have to stick the landing. And blaming the other person wipes away the accountability. For accountability to really be part of repair and growth in a relationship, there has to be a commitment to doing better next time and showing that in behavior change. So accountability takes in a lot. So what's this about? Why can't narcissistic people be accountable if that's the fix? Well, it's simple. It's the shame. The narcissistic person's grandiosity and the way they communicate their beliefs that they're somehow special, entitled, that they're exceptional, superior. These are all defenses against their deep well of insecurity and shame. There's a superficial, delusional buy-in to the idea that they are perfect. And if anything goes wrong, it has to be someone else. Well, to be accountable is to be human, to be imperfect, to own up to not having all the answers or to being wrong. Well, that activates that shame of being ordinary. And the grandiose defenses are the duct tape that keep the narcissistic person held together. So accountability would dismantle all that. Thus, to keep the duct-taped grandiose mess together, the narcissistic person is not only not accountable, they keep everyone else small by blaming them. So the grandiosity, that's some powerful duct tape there. The grandiosity remains because the narcissistic person gets to remain sort of fault-free and everyone else, you, suck. So when people give me the laundry list of what is happening in a narcissistic relationship, I also ask them very pointedly about accountability. And invariably, the more traits and the more patterns and the more consistent all of this is, the less likely they're able to describe anything resembling accountability. And it helps you understand why things don't change, never feel safer, or get better. If a person can't own it, they sure as hell can't fix it. The hardest work in therapy with narcissistic clients is to cultivate some kind of interpersonal accountability. And a lot of clients will drop out if this issue of accountability is pushed too hard, or the therapist has to do the constant work of helping the client, narcissistic client, pulling them out of making excuses for their behaviors or pulling them out of always blaming other people. Or the narcissistic client will start blaming the therapist and telling the therapist that it's the therapist's fault that their behavior isn't changing. There's always someone being blamed. You can't be the narcissistic person's therapist if you are in a relationship with them, if you're in their life, if you're in their family. And trust me, you're not going to be the one that's going to make them accountable. That's their responsibility. The dismantling of the grandiose defenses to someone more vulnerable and accountable is very long-term therapeutic work when it actually does work. And like I said, above all else, that work is not your responsibility, it's theirs. And that's the crux of the problem for most narcissistic people. It's everybody's fault, but theirs. Without this accountability, it's not possible to have repair. And without repair, you remain in a perpetually stunted relationship that can really only work if you take the blame and are willing to hold on to their projected shame. And let me tell you this, your shoulders start to get tired from carrying their shame around for them. And your soul gets tired from abandoning yourself. But I also want you to understand, because some of you might be thinking, well, if a person's accountable, then does that mean they're always let off the hook? Not necessarily. A person could be accountable, and you might say, and yes, and you betrayed my trust in a way that I can't move forward. Thank you for owning it, and I can't move forward. And when you get that accountability, then you get that thing called closure, which is what helps many people heal. When you can close that circle and say, it was what it was. It ended in a place where I can't move forward from, but they owned it. It really does allow the person who was, for example, betrayed, a much better shot at healing and feeling whole again. Because in most narcissistic relationships, there isn't that accountability. There isn't that opportunity for closure if you leave. And there isn't that opportunity for growth when you stay. I hope that helps. And thanks again.